I'm an architect, there I said it. And I'm here to talk this morning about some of the issues that I feel I've carried over the last 20 years, and some of the things that we can do, I hope, to change that for the better. Here we go. But as well as being an architect, I'm a human, and I'm in love with that planet there. And at the moment, I feel that we have a duty as architects to try and help society get things better than we have so far. We're talking about, climate emergency. We've obviously got COP26 round the corner. It's all very, very relevant. And I have to be honest and say that I've spent the last 25 years in practice. I never learnt about sustainability at university. It's only come to the fore in this generation, and I feel responsible for a lot of the damage that we've done for the planet. This is Shanghai. Can't quite see it very well there. We're talking about a net zero future. We're talking about low carbon. We're talking about sustainability. Actually, a lot of what we're doing is going in the wrong direction. And every time we build a building at the moment, even with the best of intentions, a lot of the work that we're doing is making the situation worse, not better. So what can we do about that? So we are in an emergency. And as well as looking towards a net zero future, we're also looking towards a population explosion. So we currently have a population in excess of 7 billion people. By the end of the century, that will have gone up by 43%. If we just pause and think about that, we're trying to reduce our energy output. We're trying to reduce our impact on the planet. But by the end of the century, there'll be another 43% on top of the existing population. And to me, that is going to make achieving a net zero future exponentially harder. And we talk about net zero. I've never quite got my head around what that means, because for me, net zero means I'll do my best, and if I fail, I'll plant some trees. And that doesn't really provide us with the answer. I'm much more interested in an actual zero future. And I think in order to do that, we're going to have to really reinvent the way that we interact with buildings. As a society, we need buildings, we need homes, we need shelter. It's one of the basic premises of modern society. But if we keep doing things the way we're doing it, I personally cannot see a net zero future in time to make the material differences that we need to achieve. This was what got me into architecture. Louis Kahn, for those who knew, the art of creation of space. And it was beautiful, and I fell in love with it, and it was fantastic. But unfortunately, there was no consideration to the planet. There was no consideration to the materials. There was no consideration to the fact that concrete creates CO2 the moment you make it. Some wonderful buildings, very aspirational. I still love him. I still love his work. But we have a duty to take the journey forward and try and do things differently. And this is quite interesting. There are 3.6 million architects around the world. And between us, we're doing our best. And we actually only create 20% of the built environment. So if we let that settle in with nearly 8 billion people, 3.6 million architects, we're not doing as much as we can with as much impact as we possibly could. And I believe we've a duty to try and place architecture back into the center of the built environment. We need to be involved as much as we can. And to do that, we need to reinvent the ecosystem of construction and need to recreate the construction industry. We need to recreate our role within the construction industry to make sure that we're able to bring all of the skills and passions and knowledge that we've got into that other 80% that we're not involved with. But we've got real problems here at home with what we're doing. And these are some statistics that I've found recently that absolutely blew my mind in a bad way. 50% of all UK waste comes from construction. 50%. That's incredible. If you take everything that you throw away, 50% of it is coming from what we do. From what we do in creating buildings creates all of that waste. And of that waste, we create an enormous percentage of plastic, equivalent to 15 Empire State Buildings a year, which is just, you can barely imagine that. And 25% of that is coming from construction. So not only are we creating 50% of the country's waste, but we're actually creating a significant percentage of plastic waste as well along the way. And this is because our construction industry just hasn't kept up with the pace of change in other areas of technology and industry. Again, another statistic that I just couldn't believe, that for every 5 houses we build, 1 of them is effectively thrown straight into landfill through construction waste. We have to change the way that we're doing things. There's so many things that we could go into in more detail to talk about that. But as well as being an architect and a human, I'm also passionate about the planet. And I think this sums it up. This is not a drill. We haven't got time to practice. We've got to be doing it now, and we've got to be doing it fast, and we've got to be doing it right. And my personal belief is that we're chasing carbon. We're chasing carbon as a solution, when actually I think we should be looking much more towards ecology. If we look at the ecosystems and the ecological balance of the planet, as well as the carbon, I think we're on a much better trajectory. This is a site that you see all too often at domestic scale, skips outside houses. People fill skips with waste, and then as soon as it's taken away, they forget what they've done with it. We're running out of holes in the ground. And therefore, you take that thinking forward, and having been involved in projects both small and large over a number of years, what you choose to do from an ecological standpoint sits outside of the critical path. Everyone talks about economic value. We sit with a client, I've only got this much money, I've got to achieve this benchmark, I've got to achieve this profit margin. And making decisions about the environment sits outside of that. And I think this is where we can take on a new role as the emergency architect. We can come in and we can start to shift the balance and start to get back closer to clients, closer to briefs, close to understanding what we need to do. A lot of people being familiar with the circular economy, it's very much in the common psyche at the moment. We're talking a lot about circular economics in every element of what we do. I think it's incredibly valuable. It's what we need to be aiming for, but I think we're light years away from it in architecture and construction. We've really got to up our game and start thinking very much about every decision we take, complementing the circular economy. And my thinking on this is very much that we need to reintroduce that beautiful planet as a central key stakeholder in everything that we do. Yes, we've always traditionally put the client at the center, but we need to make sure that the earth is made an equal stakeholder in all of those decisions. And some people will be familiar with the quality, time and cost pyramid that we've all worked with over years with project managers and clients, which it says you can't achieve everything. If we're going to set our goals, we can't achieve a high quality building with low cost very quickly. And that's largely very true. But outside of that, decision making has always been the environmental impact. If we can, we will. If we have money, if we have time left in the budget, we'll do what we can. And my proposal is actually that we completely turn that on its head. And we put the environmental impact in the middle of all of our decision making, at the outset of the project. And then every decision that we take with the client and the stakeholders and the design team puts the earth at the center. And therefore, we're making all those decisions around that. And in order to achieve that, we need to obviously act as the bridge between the supply chain and the client. And we need to be closer to our clients than we are at the moment. And by doing that, we can start to make really key decisions together, riding on the benefit of the environmental, social and governance decision-making that's happening at corporate level. But I think there's a real momentum towards doing this. But what are those commitments? And I think this is just an example of some of the decisions that we can take to help try and shift the balance towards the planet and in the planet's favor. Designing for 60-year scenario instead of the traditional 25 is a quantum leap for many clients, but we need to be able to explain coherently, as architects can do very well, why we need to be thinking like that. And in order to achieve this, I think we need to be looking at a renovate, reinvigorate and refurbish approach to our built environment rather than the classic, it's no longer fit for purpose, let's wipe it out, let's start again, because that involves putting it in a hole in the ground, and we're running out of holes in the ground, as we say. One of the things that we've talked about at great length as an industry is modular, and this is the archetypal snapshot of what modular means. But I think we're in a good position to challenge modular as part of this shift towards placing the planet central to everything that we do, and that starts to talk about the balance between embodied carbon and operational carbon, and that's for a different conversation. But I just wanted to throw this in very quickly. We're all looking at new technologies to solve the problem, and a lot of what we've got is existing, and we're quite quick to walk away from existing and look towards the new. Land Rover, close to my heart, not everyone's cup of tea. Over 2 million of these were created over a 50-year period. 80% of them are still on the road. It's the ultimate modular vehicle. Something breaks, something goes wrong, you can take it off and replace it. And because it's highly modular, it's very recyclable. And to complete that, we obviously know that a diesel car is not good for the planet. You can now place a Tesla motor in a Land Rover Defender. So it owes us nothing in terms of its embodied carbon. It's earned its keep. Recycling, modular, reuse is a very interesting concept to start bringing back towards architecture and buildings. And then really just touched on what I believe could be 6 steps towards a circular approach to refurbishment of buildings. Talking about efficient design and construction, lean aesthetics, design for longer life. Let's get back to a monumental approach to buildings that will last multi-generational rather than a very short period, wasteful. Making sure they're repurpose heavy. Let's reuse as much as we can. Let's make sure that when we fit windows, we can take them out easily, put new ones in, reuse, pass on materials, move materials between economies. Companies are already doing this. There are some really forward-thinking circular companies that are already looking at innovative materials, recycling from waste, reusing from waste, growing from mushrooms, retaking waste out of the system, digging back into landfill, taking materials out and turning them into new things. And I think to end on a positive note, we're actually doing it. This is a project that took an old sports hall near to here that was destined to be knocked down, and we're turning it back into a new thing, reusing as many materials as possible, keeping it all so that at the end of the project, all of that material can be stacked up, given away, used elsewhere, zero waste, and not expensive. I think that's the really important message. So my challenge, and if I share the challenge, then it's one for you as well. But this is my challenge I'm going to take forward, which is to design, reuse, adapt, and repeat for as long as I can to undo all the damage that I started. So thank you very much.